Welcome to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, where owners of privately held middle market companies talk about founding, scaling, and exiting their businesses successfully. Learn how to maximize and monetize your business on your own terms. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Heather Bennett, your host for the Growth Plus Exit podcast, featuring middle market owners and experts talking about founding, growing, scaling, and possibly exiting their business, normally on their own terms. Past guests include Matt Vukoff, co-founder and CEO of Talentcraft, and Kelly Schrod, founder and chairman of Data Vision. This episode is brought to you by Newport LLC, a team of seasoned executives helping CEOs of privately held companies grow, de-risk, and exit their businesses successfully. Newport LLC is a winner of the prestigious Inc. Magazine 2025 Power Partner Awards, a list of elite B2B companies from across the globe. See the entire list at inc.com/Power Partner Awards. To learn more about Newport, visit us at newportllc.com or find us on LinkedIn. Before introducing today's guests, I would like to thank David JP Fisher for introducing me to my guest. You can find DFish on LinkedIn or at davidjpfisher.com. Today's guest is Joe Flanagan, Chairman of Acquirent, a nationally recognized leader in outsourced sales execution. Joe began his entrepreneurial career by founding JP Flanagan Corporation, which he grew into one of Chicago's largest insurance agencies before successfully selling to Hub International. He has since built Acquirent and LeadGen into award-winning firms, both honored on the Inc. 5000 list, while mentoring teams and advising business owners on scaling with discipline and preparing for successful exits. With more than 25 years of experience, Joe brings a seasoned founder's perspective on growth, leadership, and building businesses that endure, which is why we have Joe talking to us today. Joe, welcome to the show.
Heather, it's great to be here.
So let's get right into it. I want to hear more about how you start. You've started so many businesses. So where would you like to start in terms of which business you started?
Well, the first business was pretty simple. You think about all the people that are starting businesses today with this interesting financing backgrounds, et cetera. I was at Aon 100 years ago and became a little frustrated with how a large organization moves and how people are compensated. And I decided maybe try this on my own. And so I left and started my own insurance brokerage firm. It was a specialty operating called, oddly enough, JP Flanagan Corporation. And in the next 9 years, I grew that to one of the top 25 in Chicago by just, one sale at a time, right? There wasn't any great financial engineering or no private equity, or this was all kind of before that. And I ultimately ended up saying, hey, I'd like to do something different. I'd like to have a little more variety in my life. So I sold to a terrific organization called Hub International. I took basically all stock and was there. We took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. So that was a really exciting day in my career. And I lasted there 3 years and bounced out of there. And so it was and again, it was a great exit. And, it was a very satisfying thing. And I just kind of knew I wanted to do something different. And I got involved with Acquirent. It's actually already a very small business. And we, over the next 18 years, grew it into a large organization that worked with B2B companies and helping them drive their sales, either through lead creation or closing sales. We worked for Abbott and Enterprise, Rent-A-Car, and a lot of small companies too. And so it was. And on November 1st of this year, I sold. So we sold and had an exit to a great firm out of Texas. And so we're kind of helping transition all of the people in the accounts, and it's been very smooth and been exciting. So I've been a part of a couple of exits which have been interesting in my career, and now looking forward to the next chapter.
Excellent. So let's talk about the beginning of Acquirent. What were those first 5 years like? as you were growing it?
It was pretty exciting. It was a little bit of a rock and roll time. There was the economy was rocking, and people were investing heavily in sales, and so it was the typical employee that we would hire as somebody who was a recent college graduate, maybe with one or two jobs out. And again, at that point, a lot of these young talent were moving around pretty quickly. So we were always recruiting. We were always developing. So those are one of the years that we were in the Inc. 5000. So it was a really exciting growth. And, working with this young sales talent was always so exciting and fun and interesting. And, I was obviously the old guy at the point, but, teaching these and helping coach and develop so much talent has been tremendously satisfying in my career. I've since the sale have been reached out to by so many people to say thank you for the opportunity to work at Acquirent and learn about the structure and the discipline involved in sales, and it's helped so many people launch their careers, and that's really satisfying.
What were some of the roadblocks, during those early days? Because I know that's always when I talk to a lot of founders, they're like, yeah, I wasn't sleeping. I was working 100-hour weeks, 120-hour weeks. You had to just get stuff done. What were some of the roadblocks you had to get around at that point while growing it?
Well, we don't have that much time, Heather, but no, it's always people, right? And when you're in sales, hiring the right people is the key. Figuring out who really can be successful and has got the energy and the enthusiasm to sell. The company is an inside sales company, so we pick up the phone and make outbound prospecting calls. That's hard. And so it's you have to find people that are tenacious and tough and aggressive and willing to do that. Pick up the phone 100, 125 times a day, and people say no, 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 and then you get to the yes. So it's pretty. We hire some pretty resilient, tough folks that were great. And so taking those skills and those backgrounds and teaching them that craft was excellent. And we had a great management team who was really excited about working with this young talent and helping kind of mold them in their careers. So it was a lot of fun.
So you've in being in sales for as long as you have, when you meet someone, what is about them that tells you they're going to be successful in sales or not? Because you alluded a little to it, but I want to get a little more specific. Like, what is that thing, that spark that helps you understand they're going to have the resilience to do this?
There's never a full answer to that, complete, because you sometimes swing and miss. But I'll tell you, we thought there were 5 attributes to being a great salesperson. So it's a great question, and I got a great answer. The most important attribute to being a great salesperson is an undying positive attitude. Is keeping focus, keeping positive, because that's what people buy, right? They respond to that positivity, that energy that people have, and it's a really important piece. And then being able to keep yourself fired up and being able to keep yourself kind of energized about this is really critical. The second most important attribute is the ability to ask good questions, right? You think of a lot of salespeople and you think of them just talking yap, 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 and that's actually not the key. It's asking good questions. And the third is the willingness to shut up and listen. Because if you're asking good, thoughtful questions and shutting up, they're going to give you the keys to the sale. And it's so basic, but so it is a learned skill. I had to learn it myself. The fourth most attribute is knowing your product and how it applies to your prospect, really doing it. And the fifth is grit, toughness, and the ability to kind of keep going. So, again, 5 attributes to be a great salesperson: an undying positive attitude, the art of asking good questions, the willingness to shut up and listen, knowing your product and how it fits, and then grit, toughness. So what do you think of those answers?
Those are no, that's excellent. Thank you. I completely agree. So much of business success is having that grit and determination, and definitely listening. I I've definitely learned that in my career. The listening part is sometimes the most important. And as you know, I love good questions, so
Yeah.
that's definitely part of it.
Well, I do fair amount of public speaking. I typically start a conversation or speaking and asking, hey, what do you think are the most important attributes to being a great salesperson? Because most people just want to sit there and listen. I'm gonna pull them out. I want to get them engaged. And so and every answer is right. I fit it into the five. And but it's usually I feel it's a really complete answer to your question.
Thank you. That's great. Um, okay, so we're 5+ years in. Where was the turning point? I always find there's a specific turning point where the founder, the owner says, you know what? I think I got something here. So what was that turning point for you?
I was pretty early. I knew I got something here. It was good. The rough patches we hit were some of the real major macroeconomic downturns. 0809 was really tough. The economy really froze in the real estate and all the other bubbles, and so people really were concerned about what tomorrow looked like. So they were not investing in sales. And then after that, things kind of in 2010 and 11, they kind of broke open again, and we had another great run. And then COVID, we got hit hard. We got hit hard. We lost 60% of our business in about 3 weeks, and people just saying, "Hey, we don't know, we don't know what tomorrow looks like." And then it popped back up, but it was a really scary time where we didn't know what the world was going to look like. And so, and obviously, I felt sorry for the company and all that, but man, there was a whole lot of people that had a lot more pain than we did. So, it was like I kept that. We tried to keep that in perspective during that time. And again, things popped back and after that, but it was those are two really scary times when, other than that, a lot of companies struggle with sales, and so it's a great tool for companies.
Excellent. So thinking about that as a leader, who did you go to during those two downturns? That we're all starting to realize there's a lot out of our control in terms of the economy. But who did you go to, and what kind of advice did you get from them to move through both of those and make I'm guessing, very tough decisions
Yeah,
about
yeah.
acquiring?
It's a great question. I always built relationships with some of our competitors, and we were kind of all going through it at the same time because it was just a giant industry type thing. And so I kept an active dialogue with some of those folks, and I think I've got some other mentors that have been important in my life that were always kind of encouraging me to stay focused and stay positive, and this too will pass. And then my family, they've always been such an inspiration to me, and a motivator. We have 5 children, and so we had a lot of bills to pay for a long time.
Absolutely. And talking to, maybe thinking about talking to those up and coming business leaders who are going through what's going on in our economy right now. Having been through this a few times, what advice would you give them? When the economy kind of goes awry and you've got to figure out what to do with your people, with your company, with your clients.
Yeah, you got to make. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't see beyond when the thing's going to turn around. So you got to make decisive decisions quickly, and to try to save the business and preserve cash flow and banking relationships. And so, and again, a lot of these companies that are being incubated in the world are now venture backed or private equity backed, and so there's lots of people out there to help that have been through and had experiences and are much more sophisticated financial engineers than I am. So, but just kind of hang in there and tap your network. Tap those your funders and your accountants and consultants like yourself, where they've been around the horn, they've seen this, and and they can give you experiences that they've gone through, and you've advised dozens or hundreds of companies and through these difficult times.
Absolutely. So thinking of Acquirent, we'll get to the exit, but before we get there, tell me about some of your proudest moments.
In the business context, or
Yeah.
I guess really, if I think about the amount of people that I've talked to since the sale who just said, "Hey, thanks, Joe, for helping me launch my career." That's no question one of the proudest moments, and being humbled by their reaching out and saying, "Hey, thanks so much. It was a really, you had an important role in my career." How great is that? I mean, besides all the awards and things like that come with this, it's having an impact on so many of those young professionals' lives, and trying to show them how to live a disciplined, good quality life, and how success is not necessarily guaranteed. You got to work hard. You got to be I was always the first in the office and the last to leave, and so there were lots of moments there where that, and again, I used to, we had an open pit floor in their offices. My desk was in the middle of the floor. I never had an office. I was always sat in the middle of the floor, so they could see what the old man was doing. And if they said, "Man, if this guy's humping it, I got to hump it." So, that leading by example is a really powerful tool.
That's awesome. Really good advice for leaders as they're growing their companies. So let's talk about the exit. When did you start thinking about it? Because that's always something I find really interesting. Is everybody's always, when you have a business, there's always a number in your head. You've got your number, but when did you really start thinking about, maybe I should be selling this company?
It's a great question. I've read your book, and that was there were some great anecdotes and things that you can pull from. But there's another experience I had really in the beginning of 2025, reading another book that talked about transitioning. I'm 61. I'm going to be 62 in about a week, and what the next chapter looks like. And I don't think I'm done. I think I got enough juice in my tank to keep working. So I definitely needed a change. I definitely needed a change. And this your book and this other book gave me the inspiration to say, okay, how do you go about this whole process? And so again, my first business, I sold at 39 or something. So I mean, why would somebody? I was making a lot of money. The name was on the door. I owned the stock. I mean, why would you change? But I was ready for a change. I was ready to do something different, and I kind of referred to I was looking for a job change. The same thing happened here. I was just ready to change, and so as I look into the next chapter, there's still a lot of question marks as to what that means. But because you really. This year was kind of preparing, and we had a pretty good year preparing the company to land the plane, so to speak.
Awesome. And what did the preparation of getting ready for sale look like? So, because it's something where a lot of founders, you've done it a couple times, but most people only do this once. So what does that look like?
Yeah. It's a great question that I get asked a lot. And because I've been through this and because I've got venture, I'm involved in another fund, I see how people transition. I actually, when I got to this moment saying, hey, I'm ready for a change, and I need to really start thinking about what's next. I basically picked up the phone and called my top 15 competitors and said, hey, where are you in this? And then I brought in And then I brought in my deal guy and lawyer, just so that we could get all the terms and conditions and all that right. But I basically reached out to my competitors and initiated the conversation. And it was really interesting, yeah, so it wasn't, I did it backwards, right? It wasn't, I didn't hire a banker and say, put this out. I did it by calling some of my competitors who I've known and said, hey, time's right for me. And here's kind of what it could look like. I'll stick around for a couple of years, but I'm not going to, I'm going to have a different role. So, and it worked out. It worked out really well.
Yeah, and it is so very unique. I mean, given that it is a sales organization, and who you are and your strengths, I'm not terribly surprised. But at the same point, that's not normally how it goes. You go and have somebody.
No.
And I think what surprises a lot of business owners is how many people are involved in the sale process. Could you talk a little bit about how many different people are involved to make sure that the sale of a business happens properly and well?
I kept it pretty tight. I have one business partner. We kept it really tight. And, I said, we're ready and the business is in a shape that we're going to sell it. So I said, you stay kind of focusing on the core of running the business and I'll start to have these conversations. And so that's really how we did it. And then, I was talking to all these people and then a referral, but I've got a really great lawyer. I've got a really great, accounting consultant that have been with me for a long time in lots of deals. So I knew when to bring them in and when I could do this myself. And what was going to be the right fit, what was going to be the right for our teammates. I was talking to big organizations where it basically would be a tuck-in. We were talking to smaller operators where they were going to go out and get financing, and then they then acquire the company, and then I'd be kind of more active involved for some time, and then really help them transition. So there were a lot of iterations of what it was going to look like, and but I had a vision of where I was going to be and where my partner was going to be, and so it was that was kind of the guiding star.
That's interesting. So when you were talking to your partner and you were having to go through the decision making, because you're right, there are a lot of variations that could have happened, especially the way you went at it, going towards your competitors. When you and your partner were discussing it, what was the one or two things that you wanted to make sure happened in the process, which helped you choose which person you were or which company you were eventually going to sell to?
I felt like, my partner and I were on the same page in terms of where we were. And so it was where we're going to land. And most of the people were going to find it a good, satisfying, rich environment. And that was an important thing. And it doesn't always work great, because people don't like change, right? Some people have been with us for, more than 10 years, and they knew the drill. They knew what, how the decisions were made. They understood the values of the organization. And then suddenly there's a lot of unknowns, which people don't like. So, the client part was easier. Some of the employee stuff was harder. So that was, that was a learning, but I think it all worked out.
Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about what's next. Where you have a lot of options. So what are you thinking? What's next, or what direction do you want to go?
When you and I first talked about this, and I read your book, there was a lot of great stuff in it about kind of these times in your life when you're at a change point. And so there were so many good things that I read out of. I put out of Fun and Fulfilling Careers, One Question at a Time by Heather Bennett.
He's not being paid for this advertisement.
No. But I actually spent a little time this morning kind of reviewing my notes and kind of doing that. But, and there's some stuff is obviously, pretty natural, but there are other stuff about thinking about like your personal brand, how important is that? How important is really understanding what you want to be, who you want to reflect, who you want to do that, That's like the first chapter and really good, but then really evaluating what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And taking notes and being thoughtful and deliberate and not just kind of reacting to some of the noise. And what's going to be fun? You're part about fun and fulfilling careers. I mean, I've had the luxury of having, a really fun and fully, and because I keep a lot of things in the air too. That's what's interesting. But studying what new strengths, and then what I did again, right out of your book is I made a list of probably 25 people that I know and respect and who know and respect me. And they know my strengths and they know my weaknesses and they know my personality. And I said, let me take you to coffee. Let me take you to lunch. Let me take you to dinner. And let me tell you what I'm thinking about. And obviously I'd been through it was a public situation at that point, but just really talking to people who I respect and love and get their interest. And so that's really what popped a lot of these opportunities up. It's just being deliberate and thankful, or deliberate and on asking those questions and then sitting down with those people. And that again comes right out of your book is how do you do what do you research? What are you trying to do? So some of the meetings were amazingly inspirational and impactful. Others were like, okay, he or she knows what I'm doing. And some of these people said, hey, you got to come work for us. I need you to come and do this. But I'm not sure I'm employed. I don't know that nobody's going to employ me. I've been self-employed since I was 27. So I'm kind of looking at my life with a series of projects where I'm helping companies evaluate, go to market, launch into new products. And I think that's where kind of my superpower will be. But I don't know, because I started after I sold the insurance business and I was out of I started a consulting thing, and I really didn't think that was all that interesting. I'm kind of a driver, a doer, and so that's part of the thing I'm trying to think about now.
So I think the term is player coach.
Yeah.
So you have the ability to be that manager, that strategist at the top of things, but at the same time, you're willing to roll up your sleeves and be an operator.
Right.
Get things done.
And then, I think these projects will be 6-8 months and I'll, find somebody to replace me, turn around and go do the next one. And, but we'll see. We'll see. I've got a lot of things I'm interested in doing and keep an active, kind of nonprofit, civic goals and objectives as well.
So great career. You've sold 2 businesses. Got your next, and you're very employable. I wouldn't worry about that at all. But where did this all start? Tell me a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how that influenced the way you approach business.
I grew up in the hard streets of Winnetka, Illinois, and came from a good, solid family. I went to Loyola Academy, which is the local Jesuit school here, which I'm still very proud. I was actually a student athlete. I went to Northwestern, and I played basketball there. I think so I was actually hired right out of school by Pat Ryan, who was a Northwestern alum, and I played on Welsh Ryan Arena, and he's building Ryan Field right now, and he's an amazing supporter of Northwestern in many, many ways, one of which is he has hired many student athletes over the years. I think the idea is that, these, particularly from Northwestern, where we had to go to school, we had to graduate, we had to, did all the things that were a true student athlete would do. Now that's a lot of pressure. It's a 40-hour-a-week job when you're a student athlete, and we were gone in the winter quarter. We were gone every other week for 3 days. I mean, so you had to be organized and disciplined, and so those are good qualities for a business person. So that Pat Ryan was an incredibly influential person in my life. He hired me, and I had the great fortune of watching and observing him, how he conducted himself as a businessman, as a family man, as a civic leader. And I just thought, that he hit all the marks. So I'm really proud of the fact that I've had a relationship with him and for a long, long time. And he continues to inspire me and many others with his the way he conducts his life.
That's awesome. Good. So other mentors, what's some of the best business advice? I know you've given a lot of good business advice, but what's some of the best business advice you've ever got, or life advice from your mentors?
Another great question. I wish you asked me that before. I knew it was coming. I would tell you this. The thing that I'm most proud of is my family. My wife and I have raised 5 amazing children. Getting married, they're having grandchildren, and we are so lucky that they're all kind of local here in the city. And we figured out, you never get the family life balance, but what I made a decision early in my career is that I wasn't going to have any really hobbies. I was going to have only 2 things that mattered to me: my family and my work. And everything else just was a no. So I kept the life really simple. I mean, I didn't golf. I didn't, have guy friends. I didn't hunt. I didn't fish. I didn't do all that stuff. I just kept it real simple. It was as good a husband, as good a father as I could be. And so I'm so proud of all my kids and the relationship that I have with my wife and with our kids. And so those are the things that I think are going to be the most impactful when I'm fading into the next part of life. I hope I still feel that same way, because there's many other things that you've touched, and it's kind of pale as to where I feel those relationships are. And I'm now starting to become a grandfather, and it's the greatest thing in the world. So my advice was, keep life simple and, follow your priorities. My priorities were my family and my work.
That's awesome. Really, really good advice. So you talked about, like, you're at this nice transition point, and that means a lot of opportunity. But having led businesses, like, what are some of the rituals, daily habits? What keeps you energized, especially in sales? You mentioned that energy and having that grit is so important. So what do you do in your life to make sure that you're powered up and ready to go to tackle what's next?
Well, I've been blessed with a big battery. So, that helps. Not everybody's got that same battery. I've always been blessed with a very, very positive attitude. Like, I pop out of bed ready to go. Again, not everybody has that. That's something a lot of people have to train themselves. But pretty disciplined and have the same kind of schedule. Like, the clock goes, I get up, do my thing. I used to exercise in the morning and get to the office early. When my kids got older and moved out, I kind of started working out later at night. So I exercise 6 days a week. I get up early. I read my kind of news feeds, and I have my first call typically at 7:00 with my controller, and we've got a 7:30, a 7:45, and then you're into the day. And so I think that consistency, which drives me a little nuts sometimes, because I do like a variety, but I think that is helpful. And again, exercise regularly. I don't sleep a lot, so that's, again, back to the battery thing. So I wish I was better at going to bed at a regular time, which I know is a good idea, but I don't do that. So, I mean, just get that ritual and grind. I mean, there's nothing that's going to replace grinding. It's just hard, right? Doing it every day. And the most interesting thing that people have asked me about what it's like since November 1st. When I started my first business at the age of 27, I said to myself, I'm never going to complain about managing people because I'm doing it to myself. If you want to grow a business, that's part of the program. And it's, it's not always easy or fun, but I was pretty good at it, better than most, right? And not as good a manager, better leader, but they kind of work together. And so I've enjoyed the last 6 weeks not having to be managing people, but so that's been an interesting observation.
It is a unique thing. Like I said, most people only have an event like a sale of their company happen once in their lives. So it is, afterward is a little different.
Yeah.
It's very different compared to the decades before when you've been growing your business.
Yeah.
I do have one last question, but before I ask it, I want to point people to your former company, acquirents.com, or to reach out to you on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else you want people to find you, or will those work?
No, LinkedIn's great. LinkedIn's great.
Excellent.
And happy to keep everything going.
Okay, so last question. And given all of your answers so far, I don't think this will be that difficult for you. What is one hard lesson you learned while starting and growing your businesses that you'd like to help other CEOs avoid?
Undercapitalization really hurts a lot of people. That first business, it was just with me, right? And, I'd never turned on a computer before that, by the way. So, it didn't need a lot of capital, and I just kind of grew it organically, one brick after another. So that was the lack of capitalization. So when I started the second business, things were a little different. And so that worked out well, but just have a sense of humor about everything, because there's some tough times, some great times, and just enjoy the road, because as I said, we've had some dark days. Yeah, I've had some dark days and a lot of great days, and that's part of the journey. And as you look back, and I'm almost 62. Those days all kind of blend together, and but some of those people that have reached out to me in the last couple of weeks have really reminded me what a fun time it was, and how it was a pleasure to work with so many great people.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've been talking with Joe Flanagan, chairman and founder of Acquirent. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your story and experience. I can't wait to hear what happens next for you.
Thank you, Heather. It's great, and I appreciate the time. Again, I loved kind of refreshing. Again, your book was great, as it was kind of in this period of transition and evaluation. You got some great nuggets from it, so thanks for sharing those nuggets, and for what you do for so many other businesses.
Thank you for listening to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, sponsored by Newport, a unique national business advisory firm. If you enjoyed this show, be sure to share, like, and subscribe for future episodes.